All right. Hey, everybody. We're just about a minute until the top of the hour, so let me get my windows open. We're going to have a nice little chat tonight about performance nutrition and maybe performance in a different way than is traditionally thought of when we talk about exercise and activity and things like that. So, um, we are recording. I've got my chat window open. Let me open this guy so we can start right on time. So if you have questions, that's webinar style tonight. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. I'll keep an eye on I keep pointing up here. This is my extra monitor. I'll keep pointing up here, and as things go in there, I'll stop and answer questions as I can. Unless it's a question that I'm going to answer later on in the slides, and then I'll defer to that. So let me find my slides. I'm going to share this guy. And here we go. All right. So we should be able to see that. And it looks like it just turned the top of the hour. So we're gonna get rolling. So tonight we're going to talk about what you can see on the screen right now. Well, first of all, welcome to our weekly webinar, Mental Fitness with Doc Talbot. Sometimes we call these Wellness Wednesdays because they usually happen on Wednesdays, but not always. So keep your eyes peeled for your emails, so you know exactly what topics we're doing on what nights. If you ever miss these live, right, the advantage of joining them live is that you get to ask your questions. And like I said, put them in the chat, and I'll answer them as I go through. If you miss it live, you can always catch it on YouTube. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, every time I post a new video up there, you'll get an alert for it. So tonight we're going to talk about this, what you can see on the screen right now. Fueling the mind to carry the body. I'm gonna just like lead with the main story right now. A lot of performance, right? When we talk about winning the race, finishing the race, achieving the gold medal, achieving your personal best, crossing the finish line, like whatever your version of successful performance is. Um, th- a lot of that has nothing to do with physicality, right? With being in shape. So I've done a lot of work with the Olympic training centers, U.S. Track and Field Association, U.S. ski team, lots of professionals, et cetera, right? Elite level competition. And I say to people all the time that the kind of work that I used to do with those athletes and their coaches is about getting the mental edge. It's because, the difference when you're at the Olympic Games, for example, or the World Championships, the difference between the person who won the gold medal and someone who maybe didn't even qualify for the finals has nothing to do with their physical performance. It has nothing to do with how good in shape they are. It has nothing to do with how much power output they can generate. It has nothing to do with their physical being. And the reason it has lots to do with their physical being, right? But the difference between the gold medal and the not gold medal is mental, right? Everybody's in amazing physical shape, but that person who won was able to not necessarily go harder than the other person who didn't win. Maybe they were able to keep going when the other person slowed down. Maybe they were able to be more relaxed in the situation and the other person choked. Maybe they were able to execute their game plan and somebody else had a bobble, and that was something that they achieved mentally, right? So a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight has sort of a mental angle to it, as you might imagine, right? Mental fitness. So let me click over to the next slide. So fueling the mind to carry the body, nutritional strategies for gut resilience, mental fitness, and ultra endurance performance. But ultra endurance performance, where the kind of performance that we're going to talk about tonight isn't just athletic performance. It's not just about running. It's not just about cycling. It's not just about, anything from an athletic performance. We should all want to have the highest level of performance, right? In whatever we do. You want to have the highest level of performance for your work and for your family and for your hobbies. Whether those hobbies are athletic pursuits like they are with me or whatever, we all want to have the highest level of performance. So my definition of performance is very much in quotation marks like I'm doing right now, air quotes, because performance is a is really wide. It's not just a physical sort of a thing. So the principles that I'll talk about tonight around the gut brain axis, around what your microbiome is doing, around the signaling molecules that we have going from the gut to the brain and the brain to the gut and the gut to the heart and the whatever to the adrenal glands, etc. Right? It applies whether you're using it to do well in a race or just be the best version of yourself in your life, right? It's the same underlying principles. Okay. So let's talk about like the main sort of learning objectives, right? So how nutrition stabilizes the gut brain stress loop to preserve focus, motivation, and emotional control under fatigue. That's real life for most people, right? How can you perform when you didn't get a good night's sleep? How can you be creative when you're under a stressful, tight deadline? It's those sorts of things. The same kinds of principles apply whether we're talking about our life or we're talking about physical performance. What actually breaks first in ultras? I'm going to use ultra marathoning. You'll see why as sort of a bucket for us to frame our discussions. But you can see I put this little asterisk here, ultras. It's not just about ultra marathons, right? It's about doing a regular marathon. Here where I live in Massachusetts, the Boston Marathon is in about a week. So that's going to be a lot of fun for a lot of people. It could be not even a marathon. It could be that you're training for your first 5K. It could be that you're just trying to be more physically active and get off the couch. It could be that you're trying to walk the dog on a more regular basis than you do right now, right? So ultras is there very much as a discussion point. Okay. What actually breaks first? The microbiome, the nervous system, your mindset, and how to protect all three. And then the third learning objective for tonight is a real world framework. Like what do you do? We're going to talk about a lot of really cool science, but I think that science is most interesting, not just because of the science, but because of the application of that science. What do you actually do? So what's the real world framework for fueling clarity and calm and resilience when the miles and the doubts and the stress all start to pile up? That's usually when the system breaks and everything goes kablooey. How can you sort of plan for that so that things don't go kablooey, whatever the opposite of kablooey is. About this is a long time ago, about 10 years ago, I was the world's fittest CEO. I came in second the first year that I did it, 2013. I came in first the second time that I did it, 2014. This is a competition that is, a bunch of either business owners or CEOs of companies, at a pretty high level. We all get together, in different beautiful places around the country, and we did these competitions. So it was always a weekend of some cycling, some running, some track running, some road running, some like obstacle course racing. You can see this picture at the bottom is a Spartan race. So you put all those together, you get a score for each one of those events that you do over the course of 3 days, and then the person at the end. It's sort of like a mini decathlon kind of a thing, but for endurance. And I won it the second year. So quick funny story. The first year that I did it, the guy who won was a guy named Frank. He was a CFO of a big German bank. Like, I don't think Deutsche Bank, but like one of the big banks. And when we all met in that particular year was in Tennessee. We met at this beautiful resort in Tennessee. We're all getting to know each other, having a little appetizers and things like that. And at that first meeting, everybody knew that Frank was going to win, right? He was just a perfect physical specimen. He was strong and fit, and we just knew he was first place, right? We were all thinking like, who was going to come in second place? Everyone was racing for second. And Frank actually, during that mixer, he came and asked me. He goes, "Hey, can I talk to you about some things later? Maybe we can sit down and have a drink. I've got some things I want to ask you." So he knew my background as a physiologist and nutritionist and things like that. And so we met together, and he said he and his wife and me and my wife, He said, I want to get out of the banking business, right? It's killing me. I want to get into the health business. My wife and I want to move from Germany to San Francisco, and we want to start a wellness facility. And what do you think? Can you give me some advice? So this was great, right? We helped each other, gave him a bunch of advice, and he ended up going and doing that. So true to our predictions, Frank killed everybody that year. He won all the events. And I came in second, which I felt pretty good about. And then the next year, 2014, we all came back. Not all of us, but a bunch of us came back, and we're all sort of looking around at that little mixer and going, "Where's Frank? Where's Frank? He's not here this year." And this guy, Ted Kennedy, who's the head of the CEO, he goes, "Oh, he had his little announcement. He goes, well, everyone's wondering where Frank is, because he beat everybody so badly last year, and sadly, Frank did not qualify." For the 2014 event because he's not a CEO anymore. He's not a C-level executive. He quit his job at the bank, and he and his wife started up a wellness center in San Francisco. And some of my colleagues looked over at me. They're like, "You sabotaged Frank, so now you're going to win this year." And that's exactly what happened. So I put this up here because the things I'm going to talk about tonight are things that I've been practicing, not just preaching about, right? Remember what I said just a few minutes ago about applying the science? I've been like in depth into the science of physical performance and mental performance for decades now, but I try to walk the talk, and say that, all right, here's the science, here's how we can apply it to our situations to help get the best performance out of ourselves. Okay. And next week, for me, the reason I'm doing this Wellness Wednesday topic now is because next week I'm going to be in Tuscany doing this race, the Tuscany Crossing. This is an ultra marathon that runs through one of the most beautiful places in the world. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. It's 103 kilometers, which is about 64 miles. And yeah, so that's like the things that I'm going to be doing next week are exactly what I'm going to show you in the webinar as we go through here tonight. Okay. So if this is the first time that you're joining one of these Wellness Wednesday mental fitness webinars, here's all the blah 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 about me. I mentioned a little bit here, Olympic training centers and U.S. track and field and all that kind of stuff. My PhD is in nutritional biochemistry. So a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is biochemistry. Why do we talk about the microbiome? Why do we talk about stress hormones like cortisol? Why do we talk about, inflammatory markers like cytokines and things like that? Well, we talk about them because if we can understand them in a precision way, then we can modulate them in a precision way. So if we know that some of the signals that are coming out of the gut are telling our brain that we're either motivated or fatigued, then we can modulate those signals and we can modulate them towards motivation and away from fatigue, right? So by understanding the biochemistry, we can use that to improve our mental fitness and our physical performance. Okay. That work, that kind of an idea is sometimes these days called nutritional psychology. It's the idea of using food, using nutrients to change those signals, the biochemistry, to change the outcome, whether it's a psychological outcome, a physiological outcome, etc. So there's all this kind of stuff. So I've done a couple of dozen Ironmans, exactly 24 Ironmans, including Kona. I've done lots and lots of ultra marathons, including all the big ones like Leadville and Vermont 100 and Wasatch 100 and etc. So again, practice what I preach as much as possible. If you like this kind of stuff, definitely hit some of these other websites. Doc Talbot is where I keep a lot of my educational content, courses, communities, ebooks, that kind of stuff. Most of it's up there for free. Three Waves B&B is our mental fitness retreat in coastal Massachusetts, and Three Waves Wellness is where we have some of our products. I'll mention just one of them a little bit later on tonight because it's one that I'll be using in the competition. The last few calls, again, if you like this kind of stuff, most of these topics are posted up on my YouTube channel. So you can go here, youtube.com/Dr. Sean Talbot, and see several of these. We just finished a Life Stages Masterclass, which was 3 sessions sessions, one session on pregnancy, one session on menopause, one session on aging. We did one on beneficial biotics, a master class that was 4 episodes on probiotics, episode 1, prebiotics, episode 2, postbiotics, episode 3, and then the fourth episode was phytobiotics. That's also posted up to YouTube, and you can check that out. There's all kinds of again, all kinds of free stuff, free ebooks and things like that. For the people who are watching tonight, you might be interested in getting this free ebook, Ancient Remedies for Modern Performance. It talks about nootropics, which are brain boosters, natural brain boosters, adaptogens, which are herbs that help us adapt to stress better so we can sleep better and recover better and handle stress better. And then psychobiotics, which are biotics that we talked about in this beneficial biotics masterclass that help with psychology. So they help with mood or anxiety levels or stress levels or sleep quality or things like that. So that's just a nice ebook that talks about these natural approaches to overall performance. Okay, so last little intro slide until we get into the good stuff. This is the company that I run, Three Waves Wellness. We're the holistic mental wellness company. We were just recently named a startup star for 2026 by Nutri-Ingredients, sort of like the Wall Street Journal of our nutrition industry. And the reason that they named us a startup star is because what we're trying to do is bring all these different modalities to bear on this problem of helping improve how people feel. So we've helped thousands of customers with their burnout, fatigue, anxiety, sleep problems. A lot of our sort of core customer is somebody that I call tired and wired. They have a lot of daytime fatigue, but they also have a lot of nighttime restlessness. So if that describes you, then the kind of things that we'll talk about on this webinar, all the other webinars that we do, and all the different touch points that we have are probably things that you want to dig into a little bit. So what we do is we establish the world's first mental fitness retreat here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. We established and have already trained about 1,000 mental wellness coaches. So we have a certification program and an online mental fitness community that really helps people both, first of all, to help themselves, but then to also take that learning and then go out there and build a business around helping other people to improve how they feel. And then the last thing is we have a line of science-based nutraceutical options. So stress chocolates, desert tea, which is like an energy kombucha, and then Zenith, which is the one product I'll talk about a little bit because I'll be using that in my Tuscany crossing next week. And I'll sort of explain how that works. Okay, so let's get into the really good stuff here, which is that your gut, your second brain, is probably the most underappreciated performance enhancer. What we would call ergogenic aid. Ergo means work, genic means generate. So an ergogenic aid is something that helps you generate work. It helps your body work harder, longer, more efficiently. So an ergogenic aid is basically a performance enhancer. And typically, having studied ergogenic aids for 30 years, we typically think of things like caffeine, or nitric oxide boosters, or one of the really popular ones right now is creatine, right? Up until very recently, creatine was mostly thought of as just something that helps, people in the gym lift more weight or, build bigger muscles. But now we know it's associated. It can help endurance athletes. It can help, regular people who aren't athletes at all with, cognitive performance and prevent their dementia and maintain their muscle mass as they age. So those are some of the examples of ergogenic aids. There are natural, legal ones. There are lots of illegal ones that the World Anti-Doping Agency will, put on their list. And if you get caught using one of the illegal ergogenic aids, you get banned from sport. But the gut is becoming one of the really well substantiated scientifically ergogenic aids that we have. So much so, and I might come back to this, but in case I don't, I'm just going to mention now. So much so that we think that poop doping is a legitimate concern right now, meaning that athletes can sort of use each other's microbiome to improve their performance. I'll get more into this idea of how the microbiome, the bacteria in our gut, can potentially improve performance. But in the last couple of Olympics, there have been some real concerns about have athletes been not blood doping, which is a banned practice, and we can detect that, but poop doping, getting a poop sample from another athlete and using that to enhance your performance or enhance your stamina or something like that. And the reason that something like that works is that the signals that are made in the gut don't stay in the gut. They will traverse across the axis and get up to the brain and can actually have can have a lot of lot of really beneficial effects on, keeping you in the zone, getting you in a flow state, improving your reducing something called central fatigue. These are all things that we're going to cover in the slides that we go. So when I say gut, brain, axis, the axis is the communication network between those two brains. So the axis, some of the signals go across your nervous system, and what you're seeing on this particular cartoon, you're seeing the vagus nerve. This is one of several ways that the signals from your gut can get into your brain. But we also have your circulatory system, your blood. We also have your immune system. Your immune system is as much a communication organ as it is a shield to protect you from viruses and things like that. It can also signal wellness. It can signal motivation. It can signal if it's off. It can send a signal that you're sluggish and tired and you don't want to hang out with people. Something we call sickness behavior. So the idea here is that if you have a healthy gut, you're going to be producing the right kinds of signals. You're going to be producing neurotransmitters like serotonin, so you're happier, and dopamine, so your motivation is high, and GABA, so you can relax when you're stressed out. You're also going to be producing short chain fatty acids. This is something that we're going to come back to in several slides because short chain fatty acids really seem to be one of those. Uh, uh, I'll just say performance enhancers, right? They help you with blood sugar regulation. They help your immune system. They help lower inflammation. They do a lot of really, really good things. And the main source of those in your body is your gut microbiome. And so if we can get your microbiome to make more of these, you're going to have more of those beneficial signals, right? So all of that you can see where that would be beneficial in a variety of different ways for your performance. Okay. Um, if your gut is out of balance, if you have leaky gut, if you have inflammation in your gut, if you have too many of the wrong bacteria, right? Sometimes we just sort of broadly say good bacteria, bad bacteria. The reason we say bad bacteria is that typically they're inflammatory in nature. And so if you have that sort of a situation going on in your gut, you're going to be producing a completely different set of signals. You're going to be producing less of these neurotransmitters. So you're going to be less happy or more sad or more agitated or more irritable or more stressed. You're going to be producing less of these short chain fatty acids. You're going to be producing more of, let me see if they're on here. Yeah, cytokines, these inflammatory markers that are going to make it harder for you or going to make it more difficult for you to be motivated and get into the zone and keep going when the competition starts to get tough. So we have to look at sort of like this is the idea of understanding the biochemistry. When we understand where those signals actually come from, they're coming from the gut. And it's not a thing where, this is something that I used to have to really, really educate athletes and coaches about back in the day, that willpower isn't really a brain thing. It is, but it's a gut brain thing. And so I used to really try, and I still do, try to impress upon the athletes and coaches that if you had access to two brains that were both beneficial, why would you ignore one? Why would you not bring the gut into this conversation to maximize those signals? If that's where they originate in the first place, let's focus on what's going on here and don't think you can just do it all through willpower and white knuckling it and just thinking that you're tougher than the other guy, right? Maybe you are tougher than the other guy or the other gal. That's great. But if you can also harness the power of the microbiome, harness the power of these signals being the right signals and not the wrong signals, that's your unfair advantage. And that's what every athlete wants. And we can do it. The sort of moral of the story is we can do it in a natural, legal, effective way that's going to be beneficial for us in the athletic competition, but then in the rest of our lives. Okay. So we'll come back to this idea again and again and again. Usually when we think about gut health and strenuous exercise, especially endurance sports, um, the issue is people have been in this situation before, know that if your gut goes south during a competition, that you might as well just wrap it up, right? You're not going to perform at your peak level. You're not going to achieve whatever your goals were if you have gut problems. But it's not just gut problems that are that are the issue here, right? Certainly, we don't want to have bloating. We don't want to have gastrointestinal issues like nausea. We don't want to have diarrhea. We don't want to have any of that kind of stuff, right? That in endurance competitions, those kinds of things, right? Actual gut symptoms will happen to about, 40, 50, 60% of the athletes, right? And so I'll actually show you some of those statistics as we go through here. And the longer the duration of the activity, the more likely those are to happen. The higher the intensity of the activity, the more likely those problems are to happen. But based on what I just said on the previous slide, it's not just about are you having gut symptoms or not. There's a whole bunch of other things going on. So we have these neuroendocrine gastrointestinal pathways. So gut peptides. This SNS stands for sympathetic nervous system activity. This is like your fight or flight reaction is a good way to think of this. The ENS stands for enteric nervous system. This is the nervous system of your gut. Altered gastrointestinal motility. Everybody knows this, right? Before your competition, you want to poop. Right. And people will do all sorts of things, right? Drink coffee, run around, jump up and down, lie down and do the bicycle legs, whatever you can to get your gut moving. Because once you start exercising, your gut motility, meaning the food moving through your gastrointestinal tract, is going to change. Splanchnic blood flow. And with catecholamines, this means that when you start exercising, your blood flow goes to those working muscles, right? So if you're running or cycling, a lot of that blood flow is going to your legs and going away from your stomach or from your whole GI tract. That's one of the things that can lead to the gastrointestinal problem. So if we can train our guts the right way, we can actually change how much of that blood flow shifts. So think about this. If your blood flow all goes to your legs and none of it's in your gut, now when you try to fuel yourself, right? You try to drink your electrolyte beverage, you try to eat your carbs, you try to, fuel however you're going to fuel, which we're going to talk about. Your gut doesn't have the blood flow in order to do the digestion, in order to do the absorption. So the stuff that you're bringing in just kind of sits there, and that leads to some of these gastrointestinal problems. So there's also this aspect going on right here. And this, in the last couple of years, these kinds of bullet points have been a revelation that as we exercise, as we're competing, if our gut becomes more damaged by that exercise, by that competition that we're in right now, that can lead to poor performance. And here's the like really, really important takeaway. If your gut is damaged going in, then it's more susceptible to damage during that competition, and that sort of predisposes you to poor performance. It predisposes you to gut problems, but it also predisposes you to some of this poor signaling across the gut-brain axis that we talked about before. And what this is mucosal and epithelial injury. This is intestinal permeability. I'm just going to read them all, then I'm going to explain them to you. Intestinal permeability, bacterial translocation, endotoxemia, and cytokinemia, impaired nutrient absorption. So this means that your gut is basically getting more inflamed and more leaky. That allows things that are supposed to stay in the gut to get into your systemic circulation, and that sets off an inflammatory response. That inflammatory response will interfere with what your muscles are capable of doing in that event, and also interfere with what your brain is capable of doing in that event. So think of it this way. I'm gonna say it a little simplistically just to make a point. Your gut is either inflamed before you start the event or becomes inflamed during the event. that inflammation permeates out to the rest of the body. So now your muscles can't fire as effectively and your brain gets tired and unmotivated. Uh, that tired and unmotivation, that poor performance of your muscles and your brain, your physical performance and your mental performance, isn't really coming from your muscle and your brain. It's coming from your gut. And if we understand that biochemical pathway, we can say, aha, it's not that I need to be tougher. It's not that I need to be stronger. Or have better endurance or stamina. It means that I need to change what is happening with the origin of those signals, which is the gut. So I'm going to share with you a couple of papers that have just come out that talk about this very idea. And we know it very reproducibly in rodent models that if we change that signaling, just like I said, if we can maintain the integrity of the gut, lower inflammation in the gut, make sure the signals coming out of the gut are the appropriate signals and not the inappropriate signals, those rodents, rats and mice, they run faster, they run longer, they have better grip strength, they have better problem solving ability, right? They can get through the maze faster, they have better endurance. So I said they run longer, they also swim longer. Um, it's reproducible, right? Like we prove the concept in these rodent models. We're just starting to get to the point where we're also seeing it in certain athlete models as well. I'll unpack that a little bit as we get through. And I'm going to see there's a question that just came in the chat. So I'm going to see, could it be that less food, etc., whatever, when an endurance performance actually elevates a higher level of willpower? Um, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, Janet. Um, so definitely, if you're getting the wrong signals from your gut going up to your brain, that's gonna sap your willpower. Willpower, I have actually done a whole deep dive on where willpower comes from. The moral of that story is that your willpower is almost 100% driven by your blood sugar control. So all of us have really good willpower control in the early part of the day. It gets less and less and less good as the day goes on. And there've been some really, really good studies to show this, but you don't need a study to recognize it in your life. This is one of the reasons why, and I guarantee there's people who are on the call right now who don't want to eat a bag of chips. They have the willpower to resist eating a bag of chips early in the day. But why are you eating a bag of chips at 10 p.m. at night? One of the reasons is that you're tired, right? You have mental fatigue. Your blood sugar levels are lower than they were before. You've been making these decisions all day long. You've been exerting your willpower all day long. That's been dropping your blood sugar levels. And then finally, it reaches a low enough point where you're mentally fatigued and your blood sugar levels are low enough where you just say, well, screw it. I'm just gonna eat the chips or eat the chocolate cake or something like that. We experience that. We know exactly biochemically what's happening there, and there's ways that we can solve that. So that could be what you're asking about there. Absolutely, the foods that we choose are going to determine our willpower and our stamina and our power output and all that kind of stuff. And it's not just, here's how many grams of carbs you need to eat every hour. We're going to talk about that, but it really is more about the signals, the specific signals that your gut is sending. Okay. One of the things that I think is really, really cool is that this study came out. This is a cartoon from the study that came out about 2 years ago in one of the top tier scientific journals called Nature. This was showing us that motivation to exercise comes from our gut. So we all know people who love to exercise. I'm one of them, right? I always have motivation, not always, but I love to get out there and exercise. It's sort of like, my default position. I'm the kind of person who would rather go exercise than not go exercise. But we all know people who their default position is, I'd rather sit on the couch. And, I think there's a lot of people who look at that and go, oh, well, there's an active person and a lazy person. And it isn't that at all. The signal, the drive, the dopamine drive to exercise comes from your gut. And knowing that, we can actually change the signaling from your gut that goes across your axis, and we can actually change people from their default position being a couch potato, we can change their default position to being somebody who says, let's go to the gym or let's put on our sneakers and go for a walk. Like that just, and they become a new person because of the signals that are coming from their gut. And those signals are from these little bacteria. So we can change your this is kind of what I was talking about, like poop doping. We can change the bacteria in somebody's gut to make them more inclined to exercise. And we know it's dopamine pathways. So I'm actually going to talk to you about a particular probiotic strain in just a few slides that can take you in this direction. Okay. So let's talk about exercise fatigue. Let's talk about why we get tired while we're exercising. These same pathways that I'll talk about are the same kinds of pathways that cause us to get tired during the day, right? When you hit that 3 p.m. slump in energy levels, or well, let me just go through them. Okay, so exercise fatigue. One of the things that is probably most athletes that I work with, this is the number one thing. It's energy availability. So if you can just give enough energy, you will never get fatigued, right? That's the idea, right? That as we're exercising, we're burning, some combination of carbohydrates and fats and proteins. We're burning mostly carbohydrates, and that's mostly what we want to replace, unless we're talking about some of these really, really long endurance rides, or endurance runs. There are some 250-mile runs. There are some multi-day runs and rides. In those situations, when they're super long endurance, like the Tour de France, for example, right? That's a 3 week endurance fest, right? Where they're riding 100 miles a day every single day with a couple of rest days for 3 weeks. There, you're not just replacing carbohydrates, right? You have to replace carbs, you have to replace proteins, you have to replace fats, you have to do a whole bunch of different things. Here, the energy availability that we're mostly talking about, marathon running, even 100-mile running, it's mostly carbohydrates that we're providing, right, as an energy source so that the muscles can keep going, keep doing what they need to do. What people forget about sometimes is clearance of byproducts, chiefly removing lactic acid. So most people think lactic acid is that thing that your muscles produce that make you sore the next day. Lactic acid actually has nothing to do with delayed onset muscle soreness. So the reason that you get sore a day or two after your workout isn't because of lactic acid. It's because of little muscle tears. It's cellular damage at the level of the myofibrils, the cells that make up your muscles. Lactic acid is actually, if it builds up too fast, it can interfere with your muscle's ability to contract, and that leads to fatigue. If you can get rid of it, if you can keep removing it, your muscles are able to continue firing, continue firing, continue firing, and that's good for power work. It's good for like weightlifting or like sprint sports, but it's also good for endurance sports. So there's sort of two sides of this energy availability, because lactic acid isn't just a buildup product; it's also an energy source if it cycles the right way. And I'm gonna show you how you can maximize that. So we want to provide the right amount of carbs. We want to cycle lactic acid appropriately. Another key factor when it comes to exercise fatigue is something called redox balance. This is the balance between these damaging compounds called free radicals and protective compounds called antioxidants. Redox, or being oxidized, is sort of two sides of the same coin with inflammation. They both can cause tissue damage. They both can interfere with signals, like some of the signals that we talked about before. Your dopamine signal that is being produced by your gut that we just talked about, one slide ago. Let's say our gut is good and it's making plenty of a dopamine signal, so we should be motivated. If you're overinflamed, that inflammation can block the ability of that dopamine to get to where it needs to get. So you're producing enough dopamine. You ought to be plenty motivated, but that dopamine can't get to where it needs to get to have its signal of motivating you, because it's being blocked by inflammation. So it's not that you're unmotivated, you're blocked motivated. And the solution there isn't to make more dopamine. The solution there is to reduce your inflammation. So the inflammation signal could also be coming from your gut. So you could have these two sort of competing signals that we need to rebalance, right? More dopamine, less inflammation. Which is it? It could be a little bit of both. And the signals get disrupted. So there's a when I do my deep dives about cortisol metabolism or serotonin metabolism or dopamine metabolism, we will talk about the sending of the signal, but we'll also talk about the receiving of the signal. And that's when we get into the nuances of how these signals traverse over your gut brain axis. But because we understand it, we can actually optimize it. And food is one of the ways to optimize that. Because think about when we're eating food, we're delivering that directly to the gut, right? It's a direct delivery of this information that's going to lead to more information coming from the gut and going across the gut-brain axis. So it's a very direct, very immediate way to change these signals if we're choosing the right food. That's what nutritional psychology is all about. Central fatigue, exercise motivation, and gut-brain axis. So our perception of how tired we are, some of it comes from what we call peripheral fatigue, right? When you're cycling or running, your legs will get tired, right? And you can feel the tiredness in your legs. And you might get to the point where you just can't turn the pedals anymore. You can't take one more step. You're just exhausted in that muscle. That's peripheral fatigue. But that isn't usually what causes us to slow down. It isn't usually what causes us to say, I'm done. It isn't usually what causes us to say, I'm going to back it off now. Those are all caused by something called central fatigue, and that's a signal in your brain. But once again, is that signal only coming from your brain, or is it coming from your second brain also? And in the case of central fatigue, we can actually change the signals. We can use things like branch chain amino acids, and these would be three amino acids: leucine, valine, isoleucine, that which are good for a variety of things. They're good to help your muscles recover. They're good for they have an endurance benefit, but they can also reduce fatigue because your brain can take them up, and your brain uses them as a fuel source to make your brain feel more energetic and less central fatigued. But we can also change these signals, which I've mentioned some of them already: serotonin, dopamine, GABA. All of these come from the gut. 90% of your body's production of serotonin is in the gut. 70% of your dopamine, 50% of your GABA. So if these signals are signaling happiness, motivation, and relaxation or anti-stress, and they're coming from the gut, those are all beneficial for our overall performance. And then the last one are these endocannabinoids. These are the things this is why we have runner's high. Endocannabinoids. These are the feel-good compounds. Sometimes people think that they're endorphins, but they're not. Endorphins are anti-pain, which is also a good thing. Endocannabinoids are happy compounds, and we make those when we contract our muscles. We make those in our gut when we have the right balance of bacteria. So these are all signals coming from the gut, going to the brain that can reduce your fatigue, increase your motivation because of what they're doing across the gut brain axis. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about here of sort of like main places that we can intervene to reduce our exercise fatigue is the intestinal barrier integrity. So if you have good integrity, if you have good how can I say this? So the way we think about this is that your gut is supposed to be a semi-permeable membrane. Your gut lining is one cell thick. So think of like a piece of saran wrap. Your gut lining is even thinner than that. So semi-permeable means something should go across it, something should not go across it. If that barrier has poor integrity, if that barrier is overly permeable, or if that barrier is leaky, is another way to say it, then things that aren't supposed to get across can get across. And that leads to a lot of this inflammation. So increased gut permeability will lead to something that's supposed to stay in the gut will get into your systemic circulation, into your blood, called endotoxin. This endotoxin is basically a piece of a cell wall of a bacteria. We have trillions and trillions of bacteria in our gut. That's our microbiome. It's fine for it to be in the gut. We do not want it in the blood. And when even a little bit of that gets into the blood, it sets off an immune system reaction. That's what leads to the inflammation. That's what leads to some of the problems that I've already outlined, like, blocking those feel-good chemicals, blocking your dopamine, blocking your serotonin. And it can also lead to GI symptoms. So this is one of the main things that leads to, in a race where, in my 100K run, there'll be plenty of people in the run at 50Ks or 60Ks or 70Ks. They're going to be throwing up on the side of the trail. Happens all the time. It's happened to me plenty of times. Those GI symptoms are caused by this inflammation, caused by this endotoxin, caused by this increase in gut permeability. Could also be caused by that you ate the wrong things. You ate too much of the wrong things. You forgot to eat, and then you ate too much, and now your stomach is, getting rid of what you put in there. But at root cause, we don't want any of this kind of stuff to happen. And there's ways that we can prevent that. This is one of the things that I talk to most of my clients, most of my students, whether you're athletes or not. This is one of the most important things, maintaining a good, strong gut barrier integrity, making sure you don't have leaky gut. Because if you can do that, it's good for your mood. It's good for your waistline and your metabolism. It's good for your immune system. Most people who have autoimmune system problems, they have those problems because of what's happening at the level of their leaky gut. So if you can solve the leaky gut problem, it solves a lot of problems for a lot of people, including for athletes. So now think about this. If you come into your competition and you've been an athlete that already has compromised barrier function, you already have leaky gut, or you already have a lot of inflammation, or you have a lot of oxidation, you're going to be on a shaky foundation. You're going to be more susceptible to break during that competition than otherwise, right? Even if you're in great shape physically, right? Even if you've done all these other things, if your gut is that weak link, that's what's going to break, and that's what's going to lead to the problem. So, like, understanding that, we still, and that's why I said at the beginning of this webinar, this is one of the underappreciated ergogenic aids, one of the underappreciated performance enhancers, because most athletes and coaches just aren't aware. They're aware of, doing their workouts. They're aware of zone 2 training. They're aware of, getting enough sleep. They're aware of, like, all these marginal gains, and that's amazing. But if you can also add this one in, it gives you that leg up on your competition. And then somebody just put in, and leaky gut contributes to allergies, and that one always blows people's mind. Yeah, so, like, again, like, like, you want the athlete to show up on the starting line with as many tools in their toolbox as possible. Okay, so there's that. So here's a way to look at this. So this, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These next 5 slides all come from some papers that I've uploaded into the mental fitness community. So we have an online mental fitness community where we have a monthly call where we get on and we dive deep into some aspect of science. Our online community has a discussion area where we can chat about all these new things that we're learning. I post papers and graphics and things like that up into the community that we'll dive into and figure out, like, what it means and how we can apply that science to either ourselves or our clients if we're working with people. These next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slides have all been uploaded into that community. So people who are part of the community, you can go and download these. But this is a cartoon describing what I just talked about on the previous slide in bullet point fashion. So here you're talking about how the gut microbiota regulates exercise-induced fatigue. So, number one, regulating energy metabolism. Here's the short chain fatty acids that I talked about before. Your gut is the primary source of these short chain fatty acids. Whenever we eat something made of fiber, your gut bacteria will eat up that fiber, and a nice little side product that it makes are these short chain fatty acids, and those will go into our liver and be converted into sugar that we can use for energy. That's what gluconeogenesis means, production of sugar. It can also be used in your muscle to reduce lactic acid levels and reduce this other thing that's a nitrogen component that can actually interfere with muscle contractions. So it is a Short chain fatty acids are a metabolic fuel that can keep our liver and our muscles going. So we basically don't bonk, right? Bonking or hitting the wall. Bonking is when you run out of liver glycogen. Hitting the wall is when you're running out of muscle glycogen. So we can keep sort of stoking the furnace of our exercise intensity and our exercise endurance by these signals that are coming out of the gut. The second one is alleviating oxidative stress. Your microbiome will make a variety of different metabolites, right? Not just neurotransmitters, not just cytokines. It will also make compounds that can tell the rest of your body to protect itself. So what you see in here, all this alphabet soup, this SOD stands for superoxide dismutase. This stands for glutathione is the easiest way to say this. Glutathione peroxidase. These are antioxidant enzymes in all your cells, in your muscles, but in lots of other cells. If our microbiome can make these metabolites that tell our cells to make more of these antioxidant enzymes, that means that our muscles are able to protect themselves from that oxidative damage. As we're breathing oxygen, as we're creating energy to fuel our workouts, that's also creating these free radicals that are causing damage. So, like, you're making all these energy molecules from oxygen. Those are causing damage to your cell membranes, to your nucleus, to your DNA. And these enzymes, these antioxidant enzymes, will protect you from that damage. So you're alleviating that oxidative stress. That's that redox stuff that I talked about a couple of slides ago. This one is all about the gut barrier function. So those same short chain fatty acids that are fueling metabolism over here, they're also making sure that that gut doesn't get leaky. So it maintains its selective permeability. So it doesn't get too permeable. So maintaining that barrier function, reducing your leaky gut is going to help with this with signaling molecules. And then this last one is about neurotransmitters. Remember, I said central fatigue. So regulating central fatigue and motivation. If we can get the right signals here, 5-HT is serotonin, dopamine, GABA. We can motivate ourselves from the signals that are coming from our gut. So these are all great ways of keeping us going because of the signals that are coming from our gut. And like I said earlier, most athletes and coaches just don't even think of the gut, except from the standpoint of we don't want to have stomach aches, right? We don't want our athletes throwing up on the side of the trail or the side of the road. That makes all the sense in the world, but they're not thinking of performance in these sort of nuanced signaling pathway fashion. Okay. And then at the bottom here, it says microbiome and exercise fatigue document in the mental fitness community. So there's a document that's uploaded into the community that's entitled Microbiome and Exercise Fatigue. And it has the previous slide bullet points, and it has this graphic. So there's two scientific papers that have come out in the last little bit. This one came out in November 2022. This one's also posted up in the community. And what I posted up in the community is a highlighted version. So if you don't want to read all the gobbledygook of this scientific paper, you can just read the highlights, and you can get a pretty good gist of what that paper is all about. But I also put the key points here. Numerous studies have reported differences between the gut microbiomes of athletes and non-athletes, with health-associated bacteria often being positively associated with physical activity. So there's sort of a two-way thing going here. There's athletes have a different microbiome than sedentary, and being active gives you a different microbiome than being sedentary. So it's not just being an athlete you have that microbiome. It's the exercise causes that microbiome, but then that microbiome makes you better at exercising. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, so to speak. Specific pro and prebiotics have been shown to positively affect a variety of performance attributes or metrics in both animal models and humans, although the mechanisms are still poorly understood. So we know some of them, right? We know the short chain fatty acids, we know the lactate shuttling, we know the central fatigue, we know the neurotransmitters, we know the leaky gut, but we don't know everything about what's going on, and that's kind of what makes it cool, right? It gives us all these topics for new studies. And then athletes can suffer from gastrointestinal and respiratory infections as a consequence of intense exercise. Multiple studies have shown that the microbiome composition may play a role in gastrointestinal and respiratory infections that athletes suffer as a consequence of intense exercise. So, this is where the science isn't just interesting, it's actually applicable. If we do some of the things that I've already talked about, we can make sure that those gastrointestinal problems don't happen. Okay, so like you do these, you're not going to be bloated. You're not going to have diarrhea. You're not going to be throwing up on the side of the race course. But also post exercise, you're not going to get that immune suppression that very often comes after a race. So we will actually use that as a research model, right? I've done about a half a dozen studies where we'll have athletes run a marathon or an Ironman or a half marathon just to suppress their immune system so we can see what happens to them in the 2 weeks afterwards. And we'll usually have an intervention where we say one group gets a placebo, and of course they all get sick, and the other group gets some sort of an intervention, like a microbiome intervention. And some of them get sick, but a high percentage of them don't because we're able to, do that intervention, change what's happening in their microbiome. Because of that, change what's happening in their immune system. Because of that, change what's happening in terms of their upper respiratory tract infection rate. So like that's a known model that we use in research all the time. And we can use it to change our susceptibility to catching a cold and flu and all that kind of stuff. So this paper is posted up in the community. This paper is posted up in the community. This one is a really cool one. This one just came out. What was the date on this one? October 2025. So not just a few months ago. The Performance Gut: A Key to Optimizing Performance in High-Level Athletes, a systematic scoping review. So what these guys did is they looked across all the studies that have been done to look at the influence of the microbiome on athletic performance. And they looked at a variety of different sports. They looked at running, rowing, cycling, field hockey. I think they looked at, I don't know if it says here, maybe 16 different sports, and how the microbiome is involved. And it sort of unpacked some of the things that I've already talked about today. Athletes have a different microbiome. That athlete microbiome is associated with lower inflammation, more short chain fatty acids, better mood, better stress resilience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those sorts of things. And this is a graphic from that paper showing that in athletes, training is going to change the microbiome. Competition is going to change the microbiome. What's happening in the gut, in the microbiome, is also going to be related to what we're eating. So I get asked this question all the time. People will bring up, they'll go, well, you're telling us to eat this certain way, but I heard this story about a guy who won the Olympic gold medal and all he ate was chicken nuggets. So how do you explain that, smart guy? There are always going to be weirdo outliers like that. Sometimes you can't explain things like that. But in general, on average, across thousands of different athletes that are looked at, eating a diet that is it says high carbohydrate here, but high carbohydrate means that, half of your, well, maybe more than half, 70% of your calories are coming from carbohydrates, and about half of those calories are coming from fruits and vegetables. This kind of a diet that's associated with not just better mental function, mood, and problem solving, and creativity, and resilience, and all that kind of stuff, and athletic performance. Those diets look pretty much like a Mediterranean style diet. If we were to look at it on a plate, it would be about half of your plate would be fruits and vegetables, brightly colored fruits and vegetables. The other half of your plate would be some mixture of lean proteins, whole grains, um, dairy products, seeds, nuts, beans, that kind of stuff. So I have graphics of it in my book, this book, Mental Fitness. If you're interested in that, we call it the Mental Fitness Diet. It's based on the Mediterranean diet, but it also brings in aspects of the Scandinavian diet and the Okinawan diet, and it's a whole food kind of a diet. It's not a vegetarian diet. It's not a vegan diet. It's a very, very balanced diet, but that's the kind of diet that is associated with producing most of these neurochemicals that I'm talking about. And it can help you with your mood. It can help you with your mental fitness. It can help you with your physical fitness. Couple of things I want to point out on. There's a lot going on this cartoon. I just want to point out a couple of things. Um, these are also the kinds of things that are associated with higher VO2 maxes, and if you're an endurance athlete, that will resonate with you. These are also the kinds of things that are associated with better power output. Whether you're a power athlete or you're an endurance athlete, you still need to put out the right kinds of power to weight ratios, and that kind of diet is associated with that. It's associated with a stronger immune system. I think I might just stop there. I'm going to come back and talk about this specific family of bacteria here, Vionella, because there's a way that we can specifically modulate this one, and this one is related to lactic acid metabolism in the muscles. Okay, so if you want to look at this more in more detail, it's posted up in the community. This one's even more complicated, and this one is looking at gut inflammation. So all of this I've talked about already. So here we're looking at dysbiosis. This is the imbalance between good bacteria and bad bacteria, right? If you have more bad bacteria and less good bacteria, we would call your microbiome dysbiotic. That has a tendency to lead to this endotoxemia, like leaky gut. So you can have dysbiosis, an imbalance between the bacteria. You can have a leaky gut, and either one of those can lead to endotoxemia, which leads to that chronic inflammatory response that we talked about before. And if you have both of those, if you have dysbiosis and leaky gut, you almost definitely have endotoxemia. And then that's going to lead to all kinds of problems. It's going to change your appetite. It's going to change your blood sugar control. It's going to change your mental outlook. Or like you'll be more likely to be depressed and anxious. You'll be less likely to get a good night's sleep. It sets off, it just wreaks havoc in the signaling across the gut brain axis. And that again is a shaky foundation for your athletic performance, but it's also a shaky foundation for your life. It's not a good situation to be in. And you can follow all the signals that way. So here's leaky gut. Leaky gut is sending a signal through your immune system. That's going to make you more susceptible to catching a cold or a flu or something like that, an upper respiratory tract infection after your races. And then these are looking at changes in your metabolism. If you trace this all the way through, it kind of comes back to this idea of inflammation, chronic inflammation being a bad thing, right? To say it in a very, very simple way. And inflammation is a very bad thing. But where is that inflammation coming from? It's not just, jumping out of the ground and grabbing onto you. It's coming from somewhere. And if you trace it all the way back, that inflammation that is leading to you, not recovering and not having good performance and maybe gaining weight around the midsection and maybe having brain fog and, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you can knock that inflammation down, right? You could take an anti-inflammatory drug. You could take something that suppresses your immune system, which is the source of your inflammation, but that still doesn't get to the root of the problem because the root of the problem here is your gut. It's either your dysbiosis, you have too many bad bacteria, not enough good bacteria, or it's that your gut is too permeable, or it's both of those, and we know how to solve those. Okay, so you can solve this inflammatory problem throughout your whole body by focusing on where the signal is originating, and it's originating from your gut. Okay. So that's all the science gobbledygook. The next part of what we're going to talk about is what to do. How do we take that learning from the biochemistry of the microbiome, the gut lining, the whole gut-brain axis, and how do we actually harness it and do something about it so that we can improve how we feel, how we perform, how we recover, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So, um, I'm just going to skip over this. So we know that those signals come from the gut. We know that anything that we feed our gut, meaning any food that we're going to eat, is a direct application of those nutrients to the large intestine, which is where our which is where our bacteria live. The thing that a lot of people forget, though, is that most of this stuff that we're going to eat is actually going to be digested and absorbed before it even reaches the large intestine. Um, the stomach and the small intestine is where most of that digestion and absorption happens. So your protein, your fat, your digestible carbohydrates are all going to be basically gone. Like they're not showing up here. There will only be a few things that show up here, and most of the things that show up here are non-digestible carbohydrates. They are they are fibers, different kinds of fibers. I did a whole deep dive in my biotics masterclass about prebiotics, where we talked about different kinds of prebiotics. There are prebiotic fibers like GOS, for example, galacto-oligosaccharide, that we know will improve athletic performance. I've done some of those studies myself. Another one of those studies just came out last week. I'll share it on one of the future webinars. But the things that reach this large intestine where your microbiome lives will eventually be the source of all these signaling molecules. Okay, so I'll just say that so I can move on to the next slide. And anything that's coming out of this microbiome has the potential to change your emotions, to change your cognition, to change your physical performance. And we can use specific foods. We can use specific probiotic strains. We can eat more fermented foods. We can eat more fibers, all to change the signals that is coming from our microbiome to put us in a good direction. It all sort of comes back to this idea of turning down the negative signals, like inflammation is one of those, and turning up the positive signals, like short chain fatty acids. That's one of those, right? If you just did those two things by changing the foods that you're eating or focusing on the right foods and focusing away from the wrong foods, you would have a massive improvement in your daily life in terms of how you feel and a massive improvement in your overall ability to perform in whatever your chosen sport is. Okay. So, what do we actually do to harness the gut-brain axis biochemistry for optimal performance? And I'm going to focus in on one, two, three, four, five things that I think make the biggest difference, and I'll sort of qualify that in a second. So, five things that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about this Zenith probiotic, which is really effective for gut-brain signaling. This one, Venella probiotic. So I make this Zenith. This Venella is also made by a company here in Massachusetts, in Cambridge. Morton Gels. This is made by a European company. Scratch. This is also a U.S. company for hydration. And then I'm going to talk about something called the roller coaster ride, which has to do with mindset. So these are all the things that are like the what to do. And my disclaimer is going to be, I've been doing these endurance events for God, how long? For 40-ish years, I guess, 35 years. I was an elite rower in college, and then when I sort of retired from that, I got into cycling. Went to the Olympic Training Center for cycling. Then I went to triathlon, and I told you some of my triathlon exploits. I've done 24 Ironmans, including Kona. So I've been doing this for a long time. And I have a PhD in nutritional biochemistry, and it's taken me at least 20 years to figure out what works for me. I've tried all the things. So if you go out and you Google around about endurance performance and endurance nutrition, you're going to get a zillion opinions, a zillion recommendations. These five bullet points are what I've found work really well for me. But a lot of it was trial and error, even when you understand all the science, right? So, even what I'm going to tell you, take it with a little bit of a grain of salt because what works for me might not work for you. Um, uh, there's going to be some trial and error. There's also an aspect of training. Just like you train your muscles to be an endurance thing or you train them to be a strength thing, just as you're training your muscles, you have to train your gut. So there's a huge aspect of trying things and seeing what works in what situations. Every race is different. Some races are going to be hotter or colder. Some races are going to be longer or shorter. Some races are going to be higher intensity or lower intensity. Like there's a lot of variables. So, it's one thing to say, here's what the science says. This is going to work for everybody. And it's another thing to say, here's what the science says. How's it going to work for you in a given situation? Okay, so that's my disclaimer. Let's get into what these things are. So this one, Zenith. This is a product that I formulated about a year ago. It came out about 5 months ago. It's won a bunch of awards. It really is I'm very very proud of it. It's what I call a protobiotic. It has all the biotics in one product to improve. If you had to say, like, somebody says to me, what does Zenith do? I say it helps you deal with the BS better. It helps you handle stress in a much more efficient way. It's what we call stress resilience. And it does that because it modulates a multitude of those signals going across your gut-brain axis. Serotonin and dopamine and GABA and short-chain fatty acids and acetylcholine and a whole bunch of others. You can see all the different biotics here. There's a prebiotic blend, phytobiotic blend, postbiotic blend, probiotic blend. So it's got all the biotics and it helps with your ability to handle stress. So I take this every single day. It helps with my leaky gut. It helps with my immune system signaling. It helps with my dysbiosis, right? It preferentially feeds good bacteria. Um, it has motivation signals that go to the brain that you can feel within about an hour. So there are chronic benefits to taking it every day so that I show up to the start line in a good place, right? When I show up on the start line, I know I'm not going to have leaky gut. I know my inflammation is going to be low. I know my short chain fatty acids are going to be high. I know that I'm going to be, I'll be a little bit anxious, like in a good way, like nervous energy, but I'm not going to be over anxious because I'm going to be able to regulate that signaling across my gut brain axis. So like there's a reason I take it every day so I show up to the finish line or show up to the start line in a good place, mentally and physically. But then I'm also going to take it during my race. I'll take 2 capsules in the morning with my breakfast, like I do every single morning, and I will have it in a little Ziploc bag in my running vest, so I can take it periodically. Because as I get into the stress of the day, there's going to be first brain stress, there's going to be second brain stress, there's going to be axis stress, and the taking it periodically, a couple times over the 100 kilometers I'm going to be out there, not taking it like every hour, but I might take it 2 or 3 times over the course of the 16 to 20 hours that I'm going to be out there running, to make sure that I don't develop that endotoxemia, to make sure that I continue sending motivation signals, to make sure that I'm not getting those blocking inflammatory signals that are going to increase my central fatigue and get me to go at mile 90 kilometers, go, oh, I'm just going to drop out of the next aid station. This sucks, right? Those are all different kinds of signals that this is going to help acutely, meaning in the day, but also help chronically. And then after the race, I'm gonna continue taking it. I'll probably take it several times a day to make sure that my immune system doesn't get suppressed, because I don't want to get sick while I'm over in Italy, right? So like there's all those sorts of benefits, but none of those, I'll say this, none of those are a performance enhancement, right? I'm not taking this and thinking it's going to help me run faster, or run longer, right? I'm trying to change the signals so I can perform to my potential, if that makes sense. That's a subtle difference, but people often ask me when we're talking about ergogenic aids, they want to know, like, well, what can I take to perform better? And a lot of times it's, what can I take to change those signals so I can perform at my potential? If that makes sense to everybody. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, this product is at Three Waves Wellness. We're actually running a special right now because this month, April, is Stress Awareness Month. And we have a code out there right now, stress 10. So if you're interested in this, you can put this in the little coupon box, and you can save $10. Okay, so this one, obviously, I'm a little bit biased. I formulated it, I sell it, but it's based on some really, really good science, and you can see all of that at the website. This is another one. So this is something that was formulated by a colleague of mine. I've got one of them here as a little show and tell. So this is called V. Nella. This is a different probiotic strain. So in Zenith, we have four different probiotic strains these strains are more sort of like psychobiotic strains. They help lower stress, they improve mood, they improve sleep quality, those sorts of things. This strain is really, really unique in that it was isolated. You can see right here, it was isolated from Boston Marathon runners. Um, so what the scientists did is they took poop samples from elite level marathoners and regular people, regular just sedentary people, and they looked for differences in the microbiome. And one of the differences they found was this. The marathon runners, the elite level marathon runners, had a lot of this bacteria, Veillonella atypica, or Venella, easier way to say it. And so they said, hey, there's a lot more of this in the marathon runners than the regular people. I wonder if it has anything to do with their performance. And so they did some studies. One of the studies was to take this and put it into a mouse and see what the mouse could do on the running wheel. And the mice who got this bacteria actually ran about 16% longer than the placebo mice, right? So it showed that it was doing something really cool. And this is the really cool something that it does. This bacteria eats lactic acid. So when your muscle makes lactic acid from exercising, intense exercise, that lactate goes into the liver. The liver can convert that lactate into glucose. The glucose can go back to the muscle. This is called the lactate shuttle. It's a very famous aspect of exercise biochemistry. And the more that we can run this, lactate to glucose to lactate to glucose, you're basically producing it and then using it as a fuel source, right? Through that conversion process. But what we know now is that if you have enough of this bacteria in your microbiome, that lactate can get shuttled down here into your gut, and the bacteria can eat it up. It's their fuel source. And what do they produce as a byproduct? They produce these short chain fatty acids, and those can go improve performance in all the ways that we've already talked about. So by supplementing with this, you grow more of this Venella in your microbiome, and you're able to eat the lactate, so your muscles don't burn, right? They don't fatigue in that way, and you take away something that's ruining your muscle function, and then you give it back something that improves your muscle function, short chain fatty acids. So I was in a very early trial of this product, right? Before it hit the market, I got the chance to try this. And some of my students who might be on the call or watching on the replay know that I said after that, I said, you know what? I was in this trial and it seems good, good isolation, good rodent studies, good pathway biochemistry. It makes a lot of sense, but I took it for 30 days and I don't think I noticed any difference, right? I just don't think I did. And so I gave my feedback and I was like, I'm really sorry. It looks great on paper, but it didn't work for me. And then I went back and I was like, maybe I needed to take it longer. Maybe I was a non-responder at 30 days, but maybe 45 days, maybe 60 days, maybe 90 days. That's sometimes it takes your microbiome 90 days to fully change. And so I went back and I actually, so I buy this, right? I order it just like anybody would. And the longer I've taken it, the more I notice that it actually gives me a benefit, right? And again, it's not a benefit like you're not taking this and going out there and winning the Boston Marathon, but I'm taking it every day. I take it every morning, and it's enabling me to maximize my endurance ability, right? So this is something I'm not affiliated with these guys at all. I know them. I know it's good science. It seems to work for me, and so it's something you might want to check out. Okay, so but that's working through completely different pathway. This is helping your lactic acid endurance, whereas Zenith is helping other pathways of of mental performance and physical performance. This is one that is kind of interesting. So I've never really been a fan of gels. Um, and there's a zillion kinds of gels out there, right? You can get gels from Power Bar, you can get gels from Goo, you can get there's so many of them out there. The reason they don't seem to work for me, and I've tried them all, right? Some taste good, some taste disgusting. But what they all do to me is they give me what I call swish gut, right? I eat them, they go into my stomach, and they sit there. And this happens to a lot of athletes as well. Um, Happens to me more when I'm doing long runs than when I'm doing long rides, probably because of the physical aspect of like right? There's a mechanical difference with your gut when you're running versus when you're cycling. Um, but my gut doesn't empty the gels. There's physiological reasons for this. If you have too much osmolality in your gut, like there's too much sugar concentration, your gut's not going to empty. And so that's probably what's causing it. I seem to be very susceptible to that, so I can't do regular gels. This is a different kind of gel. I started using it over the last year or so. It has what they call hydrogel technology in it, and they have a combination of alginate and pectin. These are natural, extracted from seaweed and from like pectin you can get from apples, you can get it from citrus, you can get it from lots of different plants. What happens is that hydrogel sort of encapsulates the carbohydrate. It encapsulates the sugars so that when it gets to your stomach, it it doesn't cause that swish gut. It doesn't cause your gut to draw in all this fluid and lead to bloating and lead to nausea. It creates this protective structure around it so that it empties out of your stomach into your small intestine, which is really where you want it. You don't want it to stay in your stomach. You want it to get into your small intestine so you can start the digestion and absorption process. So this seems to work really, really well for me. Each one of these is about, I think it's about 40 grams. Let me look real quick. Uh, 40 grams of carbohydrates in one of these gels. So gel 160, you just rip it off, squirt it in your mouth, swallow it. It really is like a gel. It's not like a liquid like some of those other ones are. And it's a nice combination of carbs. It's glucose and fructose and everything that you want. So this really helps give you the energy, but without that gastrointestinal side effect. If you were to go Google, like I kind of said before, what should I eat for an endurance event? You're going to get this range, right? The range is going to say around 40 to, oh, I do have it, 40 grams of carbs is what's in here. You're going to get a range, 40 to 90 grams of carbs per hour is sort of the range. That's a really wide range. If you've not tried to do 90 grams of carbs per hour, but in your training, don't try to do it in a race. You're going to give yourself gastrointestinal upset. I've found that 40 grams an hour is about as much as I can do. If I try to go to 60, it depends on the intensity of the race. It depends on the heat. Like I could never do 60 grams in the heat. I might be able to do it in a colder race. So my plan for this race is to have these gels and be able to do one of them every hour, right? So that's going to be 40 grams of carbs as my sort of baseline. If I feel like my energy is dipping a little bit, I might grab a little bar or some potatoes or some rice cakes or something like that at the aid stations. That's one of the advantages of these long distance races. You get aid stations about every 10 miles or so. So I'll supplement that a little bit, but this is going to be my main source of carbohydrates right around that 40 to 60 maybe. There's a big I won't say fad because it's not a fad, but the fashion now, at least in elite level endurance competitions, is to try to get up to as high as 90 grams per hour. You need to work at it. You need to train it. And the idea is like back in my day when I was at the Olympic training centers, we would just say to the athletes, as long as you don't run out of carbs, you're going to be fine, right? Just keep topping up the engine. Just don't run out and you're going to be good. Now the thinking is more like you want to be maxed out on your carb levels at all times. And that's why you'll see some of these athletes, they are pounding the carbohydrates every single hour. I wouldn't recommend that for like a recreational athlete. There are actually some potential health problems associated with that, later on down the line. But if you're trying to win the Tour de France, you're probably doing something like that. So try for around 40 grams. If you think you can tolerate a little bit more in a long distance event, you can inch it up to 50 or 60 if you think you can tolerate it. Hydration is really, really important for everything. It's important for exercise. It's important for your everyday events. I say to people all the time, if you get like sort of like a little fatigued, a little tired, a little snacky around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're looking for like some gummy bears or some M&Ms or something like that, it's probably not because you're hungry. It's probably because you're dehydrated. So hydration is something I recommend sort of across the board to everybody, but especially for athletes. I've found that this is one that I like. There's a zillion hydration beverages out there. Um, find one that tastes good. They're all pretty similar in their electrolyte makeup. There are some beverages that, like, if you're in an event that is a really hot, intense event, like middle of August kind of a thing, and you know you're going to be sweating a lot, you can get one of the higher electrolyte beverages. Scratch has a high electrolyte beverage. I like the way that it tastes. I know the guys who founded this company too. They're all really good people. They make very delicious products, and they're all natural. One of the things that kills me with some of the hydration products that are on the market right now is that they have a lot of artificial sweeteners and artificial colors. And we know especially the artificial sweeteners are damaging for your gut lining, damaging for your microbiome. So everything that I just talked about in terms of the signals coming from your second brain going to your first brain, if you're having artificial, you're damaging that signaling mechanism. So you can see here, here's the electrolytes. You're mostly going to be talking about sodium and potassium, but they've got a nice mix of things, and they have nice taste. So this is one that I recommend. They've got a caffeine version if you're into that. So I said this at the beginning, and I'm just gonna repeat it. Will my regimen work for you? Right? Should you hear me say that and go, okay, I'm gonna do Martin, I'm gonna do Zenith, I'm gonna do Vanilla, I'm gonna do Scratch, and it's gonna work for me 100% of the time? Not necessarily, right? It really is going to depend on, your gut. Where is your gut compared to my gut? How big are you? If you're bigger, you might need more than 40 carbs, 40 grams of carbs to get your frame, from A to B. All the things that I said before, intensity of the race, all that kind of stuff, right? So practice, try and see what works for you. Um, I'll share this before I get into my last slide, which is about mindset. Just because I have a lot of friends who revel in what we call type 2 fun. Type 1 fun are things that are objectively fun, like skiing, going out on the boat, sitting on the beach, like things that are fun, and you would just do it and do it again and do it again. Type 2 fun is the kind of stuff that we're talking about tonight. It's running an ultra marathon. It's training for the big hike. It's all that kind of stuff. It hurts a bit to do, but it's fun in retrospect. It's fun in the moment, right? In a sense, right? Pain is pleasure, I guess, in this thing. But it's most fulfilling in the long run when you can look back and see what you achieved. And then I've never seen this before until I found this cartoon. There's type 3 fun also. I've known about type 2 fun for a long time. Type 3 fun is not fun to do, and it's not fun in retrospect. But it does make a good story. It's one of those things where you might have one of those friends they will suggest something, and you'll go, that is a terrible idea. What time? And then you're in, right? So choose your fun. But I think type 2 fun is probably the funnest of the fun. And then I'll leave you with this last thing. Up until just the last few years, where we've understood where some of these motivation signals and stamina signals and endurance signals and happiness signals are coming from, that they're coming from the gut, all we had was the brain. All we had was mental toughness. All we had was grit. All we had was willpower, whatever sort of word you want to put on there. Um, and so now we have two brains to bring to bear on this problem, right? We can maximize what we're doing mindset wise, thinking happy thoughts, preparing our race strategies, like all that kind of stuff. That's all still really, really important. It's this kind of stuff, like embrace the suck. Here's David Goggins, some of you might know, who is just a character to listen to some of the stuff that he does. But it's not all just be a tough guy and white knuckle your way through it. There's this idea of the reason I have this picture of a roller coaster is one of my coaches years and years ago as an elite level rower said, listen, you're going to get to places in your competitions where it's going to absolutely suck when you're going into the pain cave, and you just have to just live there, be comfortable being there, understand that you're going to be there for a while, but then you're going to come out of it. So this roller coaster ride idea is that sometimes you're going to be going down the trail or whatever race you're doing, you're going to be feeling amazing. Revel in that. But when you get to the low points, you're going to feel awful. Revel in that also. And then know that you're going to feel good again, and you're going to feel bad again, and you're going to feel good again, and you're going to feel bad again. And that's why we're doing this. That's what type 2 fun is all about. It's about going through those and coming out the other side and saying, wow, I felt so amazing when we were going around the corner and we saw that beautiful vista. And I remember like some of my best memories of all the events that I've done is how crappy I was feeling. Like I have a vivid memory of feeling so crappy, and now I relish it because I went through that valley of death, so to speak, and I came out the other side and I finished. So like like going into it knowing that it's going to be a roller coaster is very, very, very helpful. This is one of my favorite sayings. I have this on a lot of things. I have this on my license plate. This is kind of like our family motto. The only difference between an ordeal and an adventure is your attitude. I could never find out like where I found this. Like I've put it into the AIs and stuff like that to find who said this, and it's attributed to a zillion different people. But I think it makes a big difference that your attitude is transformative, and that it is a brain thing. But where are those signals coming from? They're coming from your gut. Okay, so this was a lot, I know. Please, this will be posted up on YouTube by tomorrow afternoon, so you can go back and watch it and stop and take notes and listen to the little bullet points and things like that. But just remember, like the reason that I talk so much about the biochemistry and the science is because when we can understand that at a very precise level, then we can modulate it. We can say, okay, what are we going to do about this science? How are we going to harness this science and use it to improve our performance? And remember, performance means crossing that finish line in the fashion that you want to, but it also means, living up to your potential in every aspect of your life with your friends and your family and your work and your hobbies and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully this was helpful for everybody. I'm going to go here and stop the share. And I hope you got something out of tonight. Once it goes up on YouTube, please share it around with your friends and let me know any questions in the comments below. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.